Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 9th edition of Text Messages. I'm the parasite of the show, Rick Tex. Looks like we got a bit of a gloomy day outside today. The high is supposed to be about 40 degrees. Doesn't really appear as if the sun is going to shine, so that's a bit unfortunate. It seems like we haven't had the sun for maybe a week or two. It's definitely been a gloomy week, that's for sure. But hopefully someday it'll come out from behind the clouds and give us all the vitamin D and UV rays that humans are required for survival and to thrive and all that good stuff. Yeah, but ultimately, today we're going to talk about not, I guess you call them indoor pets, but more so caged pets, like for example, hamsters, gerbils, guinea pigs, mice, rats, just things like that. Simple pets to have. You can just throw them in a cage, and for the most part, well, of course you got to feed them and give them water and clean their cage every once in a while, but for the most part, just animals that are really easy to take care of and to raise, and probably, I don't know if they're good for young children or not. I'm a bit kind of a in between, a little neutral on that topic, but ultimately the one that I can speak to most is probably dwarf hamsters. They're the really little. They're gray and they got white bellies, and they're not really that dangerous. I mean, they'll bite people and try to claw people, but I mean it's not like a rat or a some vicious creature that could bite your arm off or anything. They're pretty, for the most part, they're pretty docile and dormant, during the day they're dormant, but they're fairly harmless. So they're probably, I suppose they might be an okay pet to have, but I guess for the most part, it depends on how you approach pet ownership too. I mean, it's easy to get carried away and buy one little animal, then all of a sudden you want another one, and then you want more, and if one dies, then you got to get more. So it's one of those deals where if you maintain a good balance or a good control, and you're happy with what you got, you get one gerbil or one rat or one mouse, and then just leave it at that. Then I think that's probably the way to go. Because what I found through dwarf hamster, because see, where I lived, we weren't allowed to have cats and dogs and sheep and goats and cattle and hippopotamuses, so we ultimately had to find some type of alternative pet. And fortunately for us, for us that meant that it would be something like a dwarf hamster, or maybe we could have got a turtle or a tortoise or a snake or a frog or a parrot or a chickens or something like that. But for the most part, I decided on getting a dwarf hamster. Now, before I get too in depth into this, I just want to say that I'm not really sure whether I can advocate for dwarf hamster ownership or not. I mean, ultimately, if it's going to be a child or somebody extremely irresponsible like me back then, and probably to some extent today, then I would definitely recommend against owning a dwarf hamster, because they're interesting critters, which I will delve into starting now. So ultimately, when I started out, I was gonna get a dwarf hamster, and I got like one of those little Tupperware containers. It had decent height to it. It was about 10-12 inches, and you get all the stuff you need. The wood shavings. I had this little ceramic pottery bowl that we're gonna put the food in, and then you get the water bottle with the little ball on it, so that the hamster can hit the ball with its tongue, and then a little bit of water comes out. It's not a complete monsoon of water. It's just a little bit, all a hamster needs. So those items, then you can get a couple things like that, those plastic balls, so they can run around the living room with it, or the hamster wheel. They can just run in that all night. So I got all that junk, and had the cage ready and everything too. So then it was time to finally pick up the hamster. I mean, it was super exciting. You get to go to the pet store, and there's a pet store it was in St. Cloud. It's It's that little strip mall right where Arby's is. There's like Brigitte's Cafe over there. Utopia Gates. I think Bravo Burritos was there at some point. It's that little parking lot, or it's that little strip mall there, across from like Savers and Big Lots, if that's still there. I think nowadays it's like Harbor Freight or Bonanza. Yeah, it's in that by Rock City Pizza and Qdoba. It's in that section of the town there. But I mean, when I went there, it was probably, geez, man, it might have been about 20 years ago now to pick up that hamster. So, yeah, so we go ahead. There used to be a pet store in there. They had this really cool part of the store where you could walk through and it's kind of dark and not really gloomy, but it was darker. And then it had all the fish tanks and everything too. I mean, there's probably dozens and dozens of fish tanks and aquariums. That's another thing too. A fish tank would work good as a hamster cage as well. So they had these fish tanks in there. You know, they had all different fluorescent, neon. The fishes, half the fishes look radioactive, so they're pretty cool and fun to look at. Yeah, just a cool place. And then they had a sort of a area in the back where, I don't know if they had dogs and cats, but it seemed like they had larger mammals back there. And then, you know, in the front of the store when they can just have the little cages, that's where they had the hamsters, gerbils, mice, rats, parrots, parakeets, and all that good fun stuff. So yeah, we go in there. There's a dwarf, you know, a family of dwarf hamsters, maybe 5 of them, 6 of them or something. So yeah, you go ahead and grab one, or maybe the lady working at the store grabs one and you stick it in one of those little boxes with the holes on it. And I don't remember if we put any food in there or not, but it was only going to be about a 20-minute drive to get back home, so it probably didn't really need food. So yeah, you get a hamster, and then, you know, you buy it and everything. Then as we're leaving the store, get in the car and drive probably about 5 minutes, and I noticed the hamster's eye was like ripped out of socket. I mean, it looked pretty bad. So we go ahead and we went back there and we exchanged that hamster with the missing eye for a new one. Now, if there was any sort of premonition about what hamster ownership was going to be, this hamster with the missing eye was probably a very accurate one. You know, at that point, I should have probably just been like, all right, this is probably a sign not to indulge in this hobby, so you can call it. Because the thing with those little mammals is, well, I'll just get into the story a little later. So anyways, we exchanged this hamster with the ripped out eye socket and everything for I mean, it didn't look that horrible. It was rather obscure. I mean, you had to sort of look at them. I mean, they're small critters, so to notice the details on them, you need to have a very good eyesight. And at the time, you know, I wasn't wearing glasses or nothing, so I probably didn't really have very good eyesight or vision or anything. So we exchanged that one for a new one, or for a different one, and then, you know, I mean, it's a very personable store. I mean, the lady remembered us, or what, you know, we didn't have to go through some formal 5-step process to return the hamster and blah, blah, blah. It was just, yeah, this one has a weird eye, can we just get a different one? And yeah, sure. So you just put the old one in and grab a new one, and then we leave. Very simple. Yeah, it's good just to have that small town atmosphere, though. I mean, nowadays it's, you know, Petco, PetSmart, so it's probably a corporation, and you got to talk to the manager, and then the manager's got to fill out some form that you got to fill out so that you can say you returned it for this reason and everything. But yeah, it was just good old days, small town, small city. Everybody knows each other. Well, maybe not quite, but yeah, it was good. It was nice just to be able to exchange the damaged one for a new one. Now, I usually kind of feel like a bit of a piece of garbage I mean, if you adopt a child and it's missing a finger, you know, you can't just go back to the adoption agency and say, oh yeah, I need a new one. This one's missing a finger or something like that. So, I mean, they are living creatures you're dealing with, so, I mean, ultimately, whatever it is, and you have to take responsibility for it, however chance, whatever was bestowed upon you by the Almighty, you are now responsible for. It's not, there are no exchanges or returns. But, you know, as a, 10-year-old kid, that those types of spiritual thought and realm and everything didn't really go through my head very often. So we got a new one. We went home. Yeah, I just stick it in a cage and thing around. Well, for the most part, the hamsters sleep during the day. Well, the only time they're actually awake is probably 1 a.m. to 6 a.m. So, I mean, they are nocturnal creatures, but it's weird that even in captivity, and knowing they're in captivity, they still remain nocturnal creatures. I mean, you almost think that at some point they realize, hey, I'm in a cage here. I don't have to worry about aerial predators or cats or dogs or snakes or nothing, so I can just run around whenever I want, basically. But no, unfortunately, they just decided that they were going to maintain their nocturnality and wake up at 1 a.m. and on occasions wake you up too if they're loud enough. But yeah, the first hamster we had, first hamster I got, he was a pretty nice hamster. He wouldn't bite you or nothing. I mean, he'd do this thing where he'd try to hit you with his claws. It looked like he was punching you. I mean, it was more funny than anything. And what we found is that they really like socks. So we just put some old sock in there. Hamster would crawl in the sock and he'd just sleep in that all day. He'd basically sleep in his own feces, but I mean, he was still okay with that. And then if we ever wanted to play with them, we were young, so we didn't really care too much for the safety and well-being of small animals. So we just dump them out of the sock into your hand and play with them. And, walk around the house or maybe go outside, let them run around in the grass or something. Just let them get outside, get healthy, and yeah, it's just a fun time. And as far as those plastic balls go, I mean, we didn't ever need them. I mean, I don't even remember ever putting a hamster in a plastic ball. I mean, if you wanted to let them run around, you just let them run around the living room floor or kitchen floor or whatever the case may be. And they seem to be perfectly happy with that. I mean, they're not very fast, so if they're going to try to escape and hide somewhere, probably not going to work out so well. So I mean, he was pretty easy to supervise in that regard. And but ultimately, what they really wanted to do is overnight, they'd almost consistently always try to get out of their cage. I mean, that was basically their whole goal in life, just to escape captivity. So with the hamster wheel, they would, they get a little creative and they try to stick all the sawdust under the wheel. Then the wheel would stop, so then they could climb to the top of the wheel and then jump to the top of the cage and then crawl out. So oftentimes they did that, and usually you could find them. There's a certain spot in the closet where they would go to the kitchen, take food off the floor, and then they would bring it to that part of the closet. So once you sort of figured out where they wanted to go and where you're going to find them, then you sort of just, you didn't really want to wreck that habitat, you just wanted to maintain that habitat for them. So when they did escape overnight, you know that, alright, this is exactly where I'm going to find them. No problem. And then of course they can clean up the floor a little bit too, so that was kind of handy. But yeah, I mean, otherwise it was just a very simple pet to raise. We like chickens. We found out that they prefer nuts and seeds and good sources of proteins like that instead of their regular, industrial lubricant, soy and corn and that type of food. Because we used to go to, it's called Big Bear along Division, and they would sell sunflower seeds there. So as soon as the hamster would hear the sunflower seed bag, the sock would start rumbling, and then he'd just shoot out of the sock like he came out of a cannon. Like at the carnival when you got the people that come out of the cannon, that was basically the hamster when he'd hear the bag of sunflower seeds. So you dump that in, and he'd basically make one giant leap for hamster kind from his sock to the food bowl and just start eating the sunflower, just mowing down the sunflower seeds. And one thing he actually did though is he'd stick the sunflower seeds in the side of his mouth. So first he'd stick as many as he could into his mouth, and then he would eat the rest of them, or just go into his sock, dump them off, and then go back to the bowl, stick them out of his mouth, and then go in the sock and dump them in the bowl. I mean, here's some weird instinctive thing to hide the food or something like that, but yeah, that's what he did. So he got giant cheeks and everything. I mean, it looked pretty funny. Probably got some old pictures of just a hamster with the giant cheeks sticking out. And yeah, as far as water goes, we just gave him regular city water, so he seemed to be okay with that. One of the things though that they did that was kind of funny is during summer, when it would get pretty hot outside, maybe like 80, 90 degrees, and pretty high humidity too, they would have to they'd have to lay on the side of the cage so that it would cool themselves off. So I mean, they still, I'm sure they, the temperatures indoors are relatively constant, so they probably didn't shed or grow fur as often as they would have if they lived outside. So during the summer they might have still had, they probably just maintain a consistent coating. So during the summer they're probably really hot, so they had to rest up against the side of the cage. And then, we could move the cage around into cool, damp places too. So we would try to do that too if we noticed that he was laying on the side of the cage. I mean, we obviously didn't want to torture the animal or nothing like that. And then another funny thing they did too is if you put water on his back, then he'd have to roll on his back in the corner of the cage. So yeah, it looked pretty funny when it did that. So it's kind of one of those things where you're probably being mean to him, but it's so hilarious when he does it that it's like you got to find a balance. It's like, yeah, I'll put water on his back a couple times a month because it's hilarious, but you don't want to do it every day either because then it's just mean and torturous and all that stuff too. And this first hamster I had, there's a pet. I don't know if it's a pet contest or whatever you want to call it, but basically you go down to during summer in where I grew up, there was this thing called Funtastic Days, which they later changed to Hometown Pride Days. But Funtastic Days will be the name that I go with now. So there was a veterinary clinic a couple blocks away from where I live, so I could just walk down there with the hamster cage, and I was going to show a trick that the hamster could do. Basically what it was is I'd had it's probably about a 6-inch by 6-inch plastic Tupperware container. You put like Legos in it. And then in the center I'd put a little pedestal or a little block. And then what would happen is, the hamster, he was outside, the cage is moving around, so he's all excited. He's jumping around and laughing and smiling and everything. So when it came time for the hamster to do his quote-unquote trick, I set the box in the middle, in the middle of all the fans and audience and everything. There was a couple dozen people there. I mean, it wasn't like 2 or 3 people. It was a pretty good crowd. And then he hops on the box, jumps to the side of the cage, grabs on, and then I put my hand there, and he hops on my hand. So I was, just showed him around to everybody, and people thought it was pretty awesome. I guess I definitely did too. So obviously it wasn't pre-planned. Obviously I didn't train him to do that. It was just more observing his behavior and thinking, okay, if I put him in this circumstance, this is probably what he's going to do. So it was just simple observation and action. So I guess you could call it a trick too. I mean, it was pretty hilarious because I don't think a lot of people were very familiar with hamsters back then, and to see a hamster jump like that was pretty funny too. You'll see like a video of a hamster doing a backflip and things like. The hamster will do backflips. They overnight, just like humans, they'll get bored, so they try to excite and self-stimulate themselves. And in the case of some hamsters, they just hop on a little block and do a backflip. So, but yeah, mine, he would hop on the block, jump out of the cage, crawl onto my hand, and then I showed him around to everybody, and they all thought it was pretty cool. And then there's another contest where most unique pet. There's a few other animals there like ferrets and birds and things like that. But yeah, the hamster that I had, he won first place for the best trick and then first place for most unique pet. So he probably won more accolades in his lifetime than I have, and he only was alive for a year. So I was pretty proud of him for that. And I just remember walking, had his little box, just walking, all the way through town and everything too. I guess it was sort of his victory lap, even though he just wanted to get home and probably go to sleep at that point. And yeah, the gift certificates that the veterinary clinic gave me, I still have them. So it's sort of it's a nice friendly reminder of, the hamster's accomplishment in his lifetime. Just a good experience too, good memory. Yeah, that's mostly, sometimes making memories is sometimes more important than making money or making materialistic things too. But then it's kind of fun just to drive by the clinic and be like, oh yeah, the hamster, he won the best trick or whatever. So yeah, that was pretty cool. And then, yeah, he was only alive for about a year though. And I think what it is I don't know how long dwarf hamsters are supposed to survive, but probably, after, you would think that mammals want to have companionship. So after he died, I was thinking, all right, if I'm gonna, of course I was completely devastated and probably was crying everything all day and stuff too. But yeah, later on in the day, we were probably gonna get a new one anyways. But yeah, after he died, I determined that it was probably a good idea to get multiple hamsters, maybe 2 hamsters, just so they got a buddy to hang out with. But we're heading up to a break here, so after we get back from break, I'll describe to you the events and possibly the fallacies of having multiple hamster ownership. However, prior to our break, though, I need to plug for a future show we're gonna have. Good times, balls deep. Sounds like everything is the pieces are starting to come together. It's like throwing a puzzle in the air and seeing if it's gonna fall on the ground all together. So you just keep doing that and doing that. And yeah, it looks like it's becoming more and more described. It's coming into picture now, coming into being. It was in its nascent stages, inchoate stages, and now it's coming from its embryonic stages to reality. The light at the end of the tunnel. I'm thinking maybe. Yeah, maybe not. I was thinking maybe for the 10th episode of Text Messages, the 10th episode anniversary or whatever, then we could maybe film a promo or a preview for Good Times, Balls Deep, but we'll see. Plans here are very fluid. They're minute to minute, day by day, hour by hour. So I don't know if we're gonna do that, but yeah, I've been talking to the host of Good Times, Balls Deep on a regular basis, and he's just showing me all these resources that he has, and based on all the research he's done in the last couple months, he could probably get an honorable PhD from Harvard or Brown University or Stanford or something like that. So I think, but he's just interested in entertaining you, the ladies and gentlemen at home, though. He's not interested in materialistic endeavors that he can hang some cute little picture on his wall or anything. It's not about that. And that's family, friends, work, career, hobby, just keeping them in balance. But I think for him, he obviously sets a far higher precedence on friends and family than on all that other goofy stuff too. So yeah, ultimately, you ladies and gentlemen at home are going to be in for a mega treat. It's probably going to be basically Christmas year round. It'll be the gift that keeps on giving. Yeah, I'm super pumped for it. Fortunately, my sleeping patterns have reestablished themselves. So yeah, that was, obviously, yeah, when Good Times, Balls Deep does hit the airwaves and hit our channel, it's, I'd probably go back into a spiral of insomnia again, but, that small price to pay. It's a good problem to have. It'd be like, say some giant meteorite falls into your yard and, you got these big rocks and they look all cool and stuff, but then you got to get the rock out of your yard so you can put your starter plants outside in the springtime. So, it's a good problem to have. And yeah, that's basically what it is. You figure it out as you go. You can't really map out because the excitement that Good Times, Balls Deep is going to bring to you, the ladies and gentlemen at home, and especially myself, is just it won't even be measurable by standards that you already understand as entertainment. It's more or less it's going to be next level entertainment, which we haven't yet been able to calibrate a scale for. So once it does finally happen, then maybe we can sort of start figuring it out from there. But yeah, in the meantime, you're listening to Text Messages. I'm the parasite of the show, Rick Tex. I'll be back in 3 minutes. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Text Messages. I'm the parasite of the show, Rick Tex. Glad to have you here. It's March 24th, 2018. I salute you, the ladies and gentlemen listening at home. Just proud to allow us into your house or into your speaker phones or whatever you may call it. So, today's episode, today's the 9th installment of Text Messages, and we got the 10th one coming up on Tuesday night, it looks like. So, might do something special for that, but I don't really know. So, just stay tuned for it. Obviously the excitement of that is pretty negligent compared to Good Times Balls Deep, but we try to work with the hand we're given, and just try to make it the best it can be given the circumstances. Just doing the part here to make Elk River great again, to make St. Cloud great again, and Minnesota great again, and America great again. Ultimately, we were talking about hamsters last segment. So I had this one hamster for a year. It died. I came home. So after this one died, I decided to get some more hamsters, and rather than just getting one hamster, I figured it'd be a good idea to get two hamsters. So I went to the same pet store, and then I think in one cage there's just those two hamsters there. So we went ahead and we just got those two hamsters, no problem. Took them home. It's just all fun and games at first, and then after a couple weeks or so, one of them started getting very large. And then after a couple months, one of them had baby hamsters. I think at first it had about 6 baby hamsters. And you think like, well, I got one cage and 8 hamsters now. So the first thing is you try to scrounge up some other Tupperware containers and get, the wood shavings and the wheel and a food bowl, and gotta get a water bowl and all that good fun stuff too. So the first thing I did was I separated the male. I put him into another cage. And then the female, so the female was just alone with the babies and everything too, so I figured that would be a safe way to go. But after a few weeks, some of the babies disappeared, and then it just ended up to be 2 babies that were left. And one of them was kind of a scruffy looking one, and one of them still had pretty decent looking fur. So, I'm thinking that these hamsters might have been brother and sister, so it's probably some inbred hamsters, and that's maybe why that one was scruffy. So, once those 2 hamsters grew up to a certain point, then it was kind of like, well, I gotta figure something out here. I had some old aquarium, so I went ahead and I converted that to a hamster cage, and then so I had 3 hamster cages and 4 hamsters. So I was thinking, well, when you put 2 male hamsters together, they literally just turn into one big ball of fur and then try to kill each other. And they literally will. I haven't figured that out firsthand, but it's pretty bad. They just make a bunch of noise and claw each other and jump all over each other. So putting 2 males together was not really an option. And since the 2 original hamsters, you put them together, they're going to have inbred hamsters. So I figured, all right, well, maybe if I put the daughter hamster with the dad hamster, then they'll just live in harmony. So one night I put them together, and they acknowledged each other, kind of walked around and didn't really fight each other. So I figured, all right, good to go. I got 3 cages and 4 hamsters. The first female hamster is by itself, then one of the male babies is by itself too, and then the first male and then the daughter to the original one is they're living together and supposedly in harmony. So this went on for a few weeks and everything, and then it turned out that, as anyone with a shred of common sense could figure out, the scruffy female daughter got pregnant with more hamsters. So it was basically just some giant spider web of inbred hamsters that were forming. I more or less had a microcosm of just some backwoods, completely isolated, civilized society where everyone just inbreeds with each other, and Yeah, things got out of control pretty quickly there. And this new the Scruffy, I'll call that, that's the female daughter hamster. That hamster had, it was 6 babies, and they all survived. 2 of them were albino, about 3 of them had the scruffy look to them, and then one of them still had some decent fur, so it looked like a, that one happened to miss all the inbred genetic mutations. But at that point in my life, I never really understood what albinos were. But because you hear about an albino cow, that super duper rare, or an albino sheep, and this, that, and the other thing. But when I saw albino hamsters, I was thinking, oh, okay, I guess it's just inbreeding that causes it. I mean, these things were really white. They had the red eyes and everything too. I mean, they didn't look evil. They were just really white with red eyes. I mean, their fur was white. They did have the black stripe that ran down the center of their back too. I mean, it was a very light black stripe, probably a grayish stripe. So yeah, at this point, so you had the original female, the original male, the daughter, the original daughter, the original son, and then you had 6 other babies. So there's 10 hamsters all together. And so the original son, managed to give him away to somebody. And then I was able to move I probably had about 5 cages, just some amalgamation of Tupperware containers, old fish tanks. I borrowed my friend's old gerbil tank, which was like those plastic multicolored ones with the little holes in various places to let the air in. So yeah, basically in the corner of the basement somewhere, there's about 5 cages or so of just random inbred hamsters everywhere. They didn't really make a lot of noise though, so that was kind of nice. And alright, at this point though, so the original mom, the original dad were in the separate cages, and then the Scruffy and the 6 baby hamsters, they were all in the same cage. And once the baby hamsters grew up, then I moved the Scruffy one to another cage. So at that point I had 4 cages, and I was thinking, alright, so these 6 hamsters, if they grow up together, they could probably, I was thinking they could probably live in harmony for the year, and then when they all die or whatever. So I just left all 6 of them in the same cage. And one day when I came home, I was feeding them as much as, I was feeding them quite a bit, as much as I thought they would need, and they had water and everything too. So I don't think they're starving or anything. But one day I came home, 2 of the hamsters were literally ripped in half. One of the albino ones, and then one of the Scruffy ones was ripped in half. So it was it's pretty gross to see that actually. But when you got some random inbred family of hamsters, 6 of them all living in some 2-foot by 2-foot contraption, I suppose all bets are off in that game. So yeah, once I found that, you bury the desecrated hamsters, or the macabre, the disemboweled hamsters, and there was, I kept the albino. There's one albino one left, so I kept him because he's an albino. He's kind of unique. And then I kept one that had pretty decent looking fur. So it was back down to 5 hamsters, and then the other 2 just let them outside. And at that point I was able to accumulate enough cages to where I could have, all 5 hamsters in their own contraption. And the albino one, he was a little unique. He would be awake all day, and when you'd pick him up, you could really feel that he was a lot more muscular than the other ones. I mean, he wasn't really a hamster that you would want to mess with if you were in the same cage as him. So of course we just left him in his own cage, and the other hamster with nice fur, we ended up giving, over a couple more months, we ended up giving that one away to somebody else, or the same person that got that previous hamster, but that one, I don't know if it died or got attacked by a cat, or maybe it got run over by a semi or something. But so we go ahead and we gave that one back. So I was back down to the 4 hamsters, and I figured, well, I got all these cages now, so may as well just maybe if they just constantly reproduce, then I can just keep hamsters in perpetuity. So then I put the original male and original female back together, and then after a certain amount of time, that one had two more babies, which I mean, at this point, I don't even remember. There's just so many hamsters now. I would have had to carefully document them to see exactly what happened. But yeah, this one had two more hamsters. So at some point, the Scruffy and then so I was down to 3 hamsters. So I was getting a little nervous that then that's why I put the two original ones back together so that they could make more baby hamsters or whatever. So they made 2 more baby the albino one too, but he didn't really last for too long. Yeah, LB he probably only was around for about 6 months and then he was dead, but he lived life in the fast lane. He was awake all day, all night. I mean, he was going to live hard and die young. He insisted on it. One of the theories was that the cage that I put him in didn't have enough ventilation, which, I mean, it's one of those things where you don't want to accept it as fact because then that would more or less make you a murderer to some degree, murderer due to neglect. But yeah, I mean, it could very well be the case because when I had LB in the cage, the multicolored cage with the vents in it, then he didn't last for long. Then he was deceased, and then after the original mom had 2 more babies and they grew up and everything. So then I was able to put them into separate cages. So it had original mom, original dad, and then one of the original daughters that had all the other 6 hamsters with the inbred father and all that stuff. Alright, so then I moved the original mom back into the multicolored cage for some reason or another. And shortly thereafter she ended up dying too. And that was an interesting one because then it showed that possibly the multicolored cage was dangerous for hamsters. So basically, if you're gonna get a hamster and you get the the plastic cage with the little vents on and everything too, it may not be enough ventilation for them because I mean they're little hamsters. They're breathing in and out at rapid speeds and their heart is racing at 100 miles per hour. Maybe not that fast, but they got pretty fast heart rates, so they need a lot of air and health and all that. But yeah, the original mom died, and that was a bit of a sad experience because that one, it looked like it was still somewhat alive. So, I went ahead and I grabbed it and I put it on a couch or something and just kind of laid there. And so I was like, well, maybe if I put this other hamster next to it, it'll get excited and then want to live life again. So I put the other hamster next to it. The other hamster kind of pokes around, is not really too interested in it. So it's like, all right, whatever. So then I put that hamster back in its cage, and then the original mom was sort of, it's like this white ball started showing up on her eye, which I guess is basically a symbol of death. So yeah, that one pretty much died within, I guess you could say it died in my arms or something like that. So that was a bit of a sad experience. So then, I guess you just got to bury it after that point. So then I was down to, these 2 new hamsters and then the original dad and the inbred daughter or whatever. And then, yeah, they died off pretty quickly, and I don't even remember what happened to the 2 newest hamsters. Or they probably died in some weird, obscure way as well. I mean, it wasn't very memorable in any stretch of the imagination. I mean, these things didn't live very long. It was that whole fiasco from when I got the 2 hamsters to when they all died off it might have been 2 years, but I kind of doubt it. I mean, it was just a cavalcade of destruction and inbreeding and macabre remains and death, and it wasn't a very pleasant experience. The first hamster I got, yeah, he's living alone, he's living by himself, he's probably lonely and all that too, but he just lived a fun life. He interacted with humans, and he got to jump around and get out of his cage at 1 in the morning, and he didn't have to inbreed with anybody or get torn apart or die in some suffocating fashion. So yeah, if you do get hamsters, I definitely recommend just getting one of them. But even then, I mean, if you think that having mammals by themselves makes them sad and sorrow and morose and melancholy, then it's probably a good idea just to not get them in general. I mean, if I had a child that wanted to have a hamster, I'd probably advocate against it. just based on the poor experience that I had with hamsters. I mean, it didn't really. I mean, I can't even really say if it taught any responsibility or anything. It just taught that weird, mammals will do weird things when you put them in weird, unnatural environments. I mean, I'm sure if you put humans in cages, they'd probably inbreed too and do the same stuff that these hamsters were doing. I mean, it's just, we're just creating a weird, imprisoned environment for them. So yeah, it was some pretty messed up stuff. But after that, so after all those hamsters were dead, well, it looks like we're gonna come up to a break pretty quick here. So for the third segment, I'll get into the fizzling out of my hamster experiences, and then ultimately put a closer to this story of small mammal ownership. But before we do go to break, I wanted to plug for a future show we're gonna have called Good Times Balls Deep. Yeah, I've been talking to the host on a regular basis. We've been talking and texting and exchanging instant messages on Facebook and everything. Sending videos back and forth, sending links to websites, sending research papers that he's reading. I'm trying to read but can only understand about 10% of it. And yeah, I'm just plugging away, trying to make sure that there's going to be a good show. And he's looking for new guests and trying to screen people, qualify people, see who can be the best of the best, basically. And yeah, I think we're definitely moving ahead with that. I'm super pumped for the show, as I've probably alluded to many times, but can't really be reiterated enough. And once the show does make the airways, I think you guys will all see that my premonitions were in fact 100% accurate, maybe even beyond 100% accurate, if there could be a scale of accuracy from beyond perfection there. So yeah, you're listening to Text Messages. I'm the parasite of the show, Rick Tex. We'll be back in 3 minutes to put a closure on this little hamster saga. Welcome back to Text Messages, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the parasite of the show, Rick Tex. Glad to have you here. It's March 24th, 2018. It's our 9th episode. We got our 10th episode coming up on Tuesday night. Super excited for that. I might do something a little bit out of the ordinary, but we'll see. Stay tuned. Hopefully after the 10th episode we can get to 100,000, 10,000th, and then it should just be all fun and games at that point there. So during the break, I decided to see where the NASCAR race was. Looks like it's in Martinsville at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. However, or 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Central. However, we got a bit of a problem. It appears that it's on FS1 or MRN or whatever those TV channels are called. So basically, if it's not on antenna television, then I'm not able to watch it, more or less. I mean, I don't really see why sponsors tolerate that they say, oh, well, we're going to pay millions of dollars to put our name on cars and to put our names on the television screen and then, or around the racetrack or whatever, and to have people standing with Monster Energy shirts behind the drivers when they interview, and they have drivers drink Coca-Cola and Pepsi and Monster and vitamin water while they're being interviewed, and putting their names all over the helmets and all over their racing suits and putting random stickers on the in-car cameras. And the sponsors put all their time and money, which pretty much goes to waste if the NASCAR race is just going to be on some weird cable network that people don't even watch or pay for anymore. I mean, I suppose if you get basic cable packages, you can get FSN, but sometimes they run the race on NBCSN, which, I know people that pay a lot of money for cable, like $40 to $80 a month, and they still don't even get that channel. So it's, it gets to the point where you can pretty much watch almost anything you really want to online, or just go on and talk to your friends and family and send pictures, bad videos back and forth, and you'll just be, not only will you be more entertained by that because it's a dynamic involvement that you're actually actively participating in, so it stimulates that part of your brain, and that you're entertaining others while at the same time being entertained by yourself. But it's also just good experience to maintain contact with family and friends. But to waste all this money on cable and then you still don't even get the NASCAR channel, it's hard to get into it then. So, but fortunately, April 13th, which I don't know if it's going to be very warm that day. I mean, the forecast up to early April is low 40s. So if April 13th is warm enough for the Princeton Speedway, then that should be awesome. It is kind of nice that they're being a little aggressive with the scheduling, and because apparently April 20th they're not going to run, which would normally be the season opener. I mean, I don't know what the story is behind that, but maybe the flag man is having open heart surgery or something like that. I don't know. Anything. I don't know what can be happening. But so April 13th will be the season opener, and then they're going to take off April 20th, and then April 27th they'll be back for the second night of racing for the season. Normally in the springtime it's a bit of a crapshoot. Springtime has potential for being awesome because a lot of the tracks up north, Hibbing, Proctor, Grand Rapids, the Amsoil Speedway in Superior, Wisconsin, those tracks are generally closed because it's a little colder up north. When you get 2 or 3 hours up north, you get a little further away from the equator, so generally the snow lingers around there a little bit more, so those tracks usually open in early May, whereas the tracks in southern and central Minnesota open in probably mid-April, maybe, mid to late April. So they got about 2 or 3 weeks ahead start, so then you'll get some of the more serious drivers from up north that'll come down to, drivers are normally from Duluth, Grand Rapids, Hibbing, Bemidji, the War Road, Thief River Falls, International Falls, maybe not that far up, but drivers from up there will come down to Princeton or Ogilvie and then just have their way with the track there for a couple weeks until their home tracks open up. However, there is a downside too. In the springtime, if the temperatures are really cold and there's still snow on the ground in mid-April, then you obviously got that problem. But the rain is a little less predictable in spring as opposed to mid to late summer and all that stuff too. So there have been some times where you go to the track and then you watch a race or two, then it'll rain, and then you pretty much have to go home, and it sucks because you basically just plan to be there for a few hours, and now you go home and now you don't really have anything planned to do. So that's just one downside to being a dirt track racing fan. But sometimes when the clouds pass, or it'll just be just an isolated cloud or a line of clouds. It'll come through, dump a bunch of moisture, and then just be done. And then they'll wait about an hour and then just run the races again. No big deal. It would be nice if the main show, because sometimes the programs they got, if they run all these weird classes of cars and do all this other weird family stuff and have a half-hour intermission, then it gets to be pretty late in the night, so you don't have much margin to work with if it does rain. I mean, if you scheduled a 2 to 3 hour show at the max, then if you did get an hour rain delay or a half-hour rain delay or even a 2-hour rain delay, you could run the race till midnight at the latest. And maybe some of the neighbors would complain if it was on a consistent basis, but if you sign up to live next to a racetrack, you kind of got to expect it too. And what I've noticed too, especially Princeton is like right along 169, which is it's a major highway. Cars are driving on it all night. It's loud. I mean, if you're going to live next to a major highway, it's going to be loud. I mean, the cars on the major highway don't have 700 horsepower that's completely unmuffled and going around in an oval where all the sound just stays and accumulates and spreads out over the course of the city. So, all right. I apologize. I digressed on the Princeton Speedway. The hamsters. So, just to give you a quick compendium here, it looks like we only got about 7 minutes. So the first hamster I got, he was cool, he was fun, he punched you, he didn't really bite you though, he lived in a sock, he ate sunflower seeds, he loved running in his wheel, he liked getting out of his cage, he liked picking food off the kitchen floor and then going to hide it in the closet. He was just a great little compadre to have. If you had some trouble sleeping and he woke up, then you had a lot of trouble sleeping and kind of made you nervous because it was 1 a.m. and you had to get up at 5 a.m. or 6 a.m. to go to school the next day, so that was kind of a bit of a hassle. And then, I got the 2 hamsters. They started inbreeding. Had a bunch of little hamsters. They inbred, and they had albinos. They ripped each other apart. They put a couple outside, gave a couple away. They all ended up dying. It certainly wasn't a personable experience. It was just more of a big crap fest. It felt more like a hamster farmer than anything at that point, and you weren't really getting anything out of the hamsters. You were just farming them, and then they would all die. And I don't even remember where I buried them, or even if maybe it was just some random killing field somewhere. I mean, I don't even remember. But the first one we had, when he died, that was a pretty sore, melancholy experience because, I was in some weird swim meet thing where it lasts all day. It's like one of those Saturdays where you just waste sitting around on a pool deck just watching people go back and forth in the pool. It's probably the most boring, and it's probably the thing that I hated most about swimming, those ridiculous weekend meets where, number one, you would waste a Friday night because you had to go swimming the next day, and then you had to get up early in the morning, then go there and you'd swim your 3 events or whatever, but you'd have to sit around the pool for 8 hours. It was just stupid and ridiculous. So then when I got home from that, the hamster dumped the hamster out of the sock and he wasn't moving. He had his eyes closed and all that, so he's pretty much done. And then the next day, that's when I got those other 2 new hamsters. But in the morning, we buried him. We buried him in a little flower bed, and then a big, beautiful rose grew up. No, I don't know if any flowers grew up where we buried him, but it was just a nice gesture. Gave him a proper burial. He served his year of providing human companionship and enriching the lives of others. So it's just just having the 1 hamster is a pretty good experience. So if you do decide to get mammal or small mammal like that, just stick with 1. You don't need to get 5 of them and get all cute and funny and have them inbreed and all that other weird stuff. But so after all the inbred ones died, then I got, for some reason I figured, I have all these cages, so I may as well maybe get multiple hamsters. So there was a fat hamster at the pet store, so I went ahead and I got that hamster. And of course it had babies, but however, it was probably maybe a week after I got it that it did have babies, so it likely wasn't fully acclimated to its new environment or wasn't comfortable with it. So it started out with a lot of babies, and they just generally dwindled down to 1, and then one of the babies looked like it was going to make it. I mean, it started to grow fur. It was kind of walking, it's still mostly that purple or that reddish color. it was kind of walking back and forth in the cage a little bit, but yeah, ultimately that one ended up getting eaten too. So yeah, so then I was back down to one hamster, and at that point it was kind of like, well, yeah, I guess that's kind of cool. I mean, the whole novelty of owning a hamster at that point sort of wore out, and plus if there wasn't going to be multiple hamsters, then it's like, yeah, just one hamster, no big deal. And then ultimately that one got out of its cage one time, and then when we finally did find it, it was crushed underneath the box, and it was about the width of the piece of paper. So that one definitely met a very macabre fate, that's for sure. So I mean, it was at that point, seeing all the death and destruction and decimation and just gore of all the hamster deaths prior to that, seeing one crushed didn't really seem like a big deal. At that point, I was just desensitized to it already. So yeah, I ended up getting one more hamster, and that was it. And it wasn't really super excited about it. It was more of a victory, not really a victory formation, but I just kind of wanted to get a hamster that would live a normal, productive, fruitful life, and that would come to a natural death, and just get all the bad aspect of hamster ownership out of my mind. So for some reason, I just ended up getting an albino hamster and just called it Mocha, and don't really have any memories of it. Just getting it and kind of looking at it and feeling a sense of tranquility, and it lived its normal life and died. I have no idea where it was buried, how it was buried, how it died, nothing. I just remember having it for, I don't even know how long, but yeah, ultimately that hamster, Mocha, put a closure on hamster ownership for me, and for probably the rest of my life. I don't think I'll ever own them things again. But yeah, if you do plan to own a hamster, just get one, let it live its natural life, and then, yeah, if you want to get another one, just get another one. Or, after the first one dies. If you start putting them together, two males will fight, two females probably will fight too, and male and female will procreate, even if the other hamster is their brother / dad / uncle / grandpa. I mean, that's how they are. They're mammals. They don't really think in rational terms like that. So, yeah, we've come to the conclusion of the show for this week, ladies and gentlemen. Good times, balls deep. We're definitely, we might film some promos for it. We'll see, though. Yeah, I mean, there's still a lot of work that'll have to be done to figure out what direction we're going to take Good Times, Balls Deep in. But like I said, I'm exhilarated for the prospect of the show. I can't wait for it. It's probably gonna have to allocate a good deal of time just to watch it, and maybe watch it a couple times to fully grasp the true underlying message of the show, or maybe any esoterics of the show, or some hidden messagery in the show too. But it's gonna be very multi-layered, multifaceted action entertainment coming at you at Mach 4. And I can't, it's like, I spent the last 3 weeks trying to describe the show, but even then I think it's not paying it the proper justice. I mean, really, in all reality, we need multiple shows to promote Good Times, Balls Deep, and maybe even some, I was going to say advertisements on national networks, but nobody really watches that anymore because cable costs like $100 a month, and what's the point in just randomly watching TV shows? Probably about the only thing good on TV anymore is just maybe pro wrestling and NASCAR. But I mean, if you're paying $80 a month for cable and then you still don't even get the NASCAR channel, then it's just ridiculous. So more than likely, we probably won't be doing much more NASCAR discussion, just because if it's not on antenna TV, I'm not going to watch it. Sponsors aren't going to make any money. No one's going to care. Nobody's even going to know what it is after a while. So yeah, there's that. And this is Text Messages. I'm the parasite of the show, Rick Tex. Glad to have you here with us on this Saturday evening. Maybe you can go out, have a couple drinks tonight in a safe environment, and just have a good time. Enjoy your weekend. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening to Text Messages. We'll be back on Tuesday evening with the 10th the 10th installment, so it'll be 10th show anniversary or something like that. But yeah, just glad to be here. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.